As Treasury Secretary, you oversee much of the enforcement of the sanctions regime of the United States. We passed legislation in 1996 in the Clinton administration to sanction any entity which invests more than $20 million in the energy sector of Iran. Congressional Research Services identified 25 companies that appear to have violated this. We now learn that the U.S. government has provided $107 billion to companies who are in direct violation, appears, of the Iran Sanctions Act. We also understand that the Exim Bank has extended $4.5 billion to entities which have directly violated the Iran Sanctions Act. Of the companies that have violated the Act, 49 of them have no plans to suspend any activities in Iran. Also, just a few blocks from your office, the World Bank is about to send $258 million to the Finance Ministry of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Since we own about 20% of the IBRD, that's $50 million in U.S. taxpayer dollars under the Obama administration that would be paid to the Ahmadinejad Treasury. We understand that Dalian Industrial made a $700 million investment in Iran oil refineries in direct violation of the Act, that in 2009 the U.S. Army contracted $111 million with Dalian. Petrobras invested over $100 million in Iran oil. That's 5 times the trigger level of the Act. Exim Bank provided recently a $2 billion credit to Petrobras. Mazda is in business with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and yet still is winning U.S. government contracts using U.S. taxpayer dollars. Any update on that?
Congressman, let me just start by commending you for the support you provided for a more aggressive approach to implement the existing sanctions, to strengthen those sanctions. I think you're right on that issue, and we are committed to working with countries around the world to put in place a stronger, more effective enforcement regime globally. As you know, the activities of the Iranian government on the nuclear front to support terrorists in the region around the world are a substantial threat to our national security interests, to interests of countries around the region, and we are working very hard, the President is working very hard with the Secretary of State to build support for a stronger UN resolution. We're working with countries to encourage them to more aggressively enforce the existing sanctions regimes. The United States is running a very effective program now to tighten those existing sanctions using the authority we have, and we're going to work to build on that record. And as you know, the Treasury plays a very important role on the financial side, and we have had remarkable success in making much harder for those entities to get access to finance around the world because of a successful effort to work with other countries to tighten up that sanction net.
But no success in stopping U.S. taxpayer money going from companies who are directly violating. No success whatsoever. And I've raised this with you before. No success, no effort whatsoever to stop World Bank payments.
No, let me address. You know a lot about this, Congressman, and I know you've written the Secretary of State about the concerns you began with, which are enforcement of the
Iran Sanctions Act.
Iran Sanctions Act. But let me just address the World Bank concerns directly. As you know, the World Bank has approved no new loans to Iran since, I believe, 1985.
No, that's not the issue. The issue is
you're right. I'm coming to it. There are only 2 loans outstanding where the World Bank is still disbursing. Those are 2 loans that go to water projects that are consistent with the humanitarian exemption that is under the UN resolution, permitted under the UN resolution. But these are modest.
But are you naive enough to think that the money paid...
I don't have a naive moment in my body, Congressman.
Okay.
Not a naive moment. I'm saying that, as you know...
Okay, let me ask this question. Are you naive enough to think that $258 million paid from the World Bank to the Ahmadinejad Treasury actually goes to those projects?
No.
Do you actually think
what I'm saying is the U.S. has worked very effectively across administrations to make sure the World Bank was not authorizing any new loans. That's been successful policy of the government, very successful for a long period of time. The only 2 loans outstanding are these 2 loans that go to, permitted under the UN resolution, to support humanitarian and development projects. Now, I just want you to know that we agree with you and share your objective of making sure we are working around the world, as we have been doing, to tighten the effectiveness of this existing enforcement regime. And you are right to point out that it is an ongoing challenge. You can't stay still. If you don't keep intensifying the sanctions regime, people will get around the existing regimes. They'll be able to find new opportunities to exploit it. But for us to be effective, we have to work with countries around the world to tighten up this net, and we are committed to that, and we're going to do it.
I just would hope that this is, right now, given the New York Times article, it's less to do about what's happening with other governments and more that the U.S. government stops contracting with companies that do business with Iran.
That I wouldn't agree with it, but